So apologies for that, everybody. We just appeared. The link to Facebook appears to have broken down. So hopefully you're still there, and we'll just pick up where we left off. So we were discussing Gordon setters, David. People who influence you greatly in the breed.
Yeah, well, I was just having talking about Josie Bradley of Lourdes Gordon Setters, which many people will know because she judged quite a number of breeds and was a very highly regarded judge in our time. She's retired from judging now, but yeah, was a very highly regarded and respected judge. Noted breeder. She bred a number of champions in the breed here and abroad in Europe. She had our kennel had great influence through a variety of dogs that went abroad, including Lourdes, whose name I've completely forgotten. Crispin, he was called Lourdes, international champion Lourdes Crispin, who's behind an awful lot of top winners in Europe. She exported to Canada and America as well, and the dogs there are behind some of the pedigrees today too. So a kennel of great influence, but headed up by kind of one person who had eminent knowledge of the breed and knowledge of dogs and construction and could, pick up faults in our own dogs very easily and knew how to try and breed them out and to try and breed to improve as well. So a huge, great influence and a font of knowledge who has been a huge influence on me, certainly, and Gordon Setters in particular. Yeah.
Okay. As I said in your introduction, you're quite a successful breeder of gun dogs, Weimaraners, etc., etc. When you're choosing what dog to breed, what bitch to breed, what dog to, are you a pedigree studier, or do you use your eye and say, well, I think what that dog has is going to suit what she has?
Kind of a bit of both. I mean, other influence. I mean, the biggest influence on me in Weimaraners has obviously been Stephen and Patsy Hollings, and Stephen Hollings in particular, his knowledge of dogs and what to put to what and what might work within their own pedigrees is excellent. So I've had an awful lot of guidance from them, which has helped me an awful lot along the way in terms of what I've bred dog wise. We had a bitch from them called Show Champion Galant Muse, who she wasn't the best producer in terms of the number of puppies she produced, unfortunately, because she had one puppy in our first litter, and then our second litter was a bit better, and then our last litter, when we thought that we would have a bitch to keep, she decided to have 7, and they were all males. So she one of those that we had a bit of a struggle with in getting something from. But from that, and under Stephen and Patsy's guidance, we used for her last litter Jackie Ward's dog called Show Champion Gunner Unstoppable for me. Who produced champion after champion, and we liked him. I liked nearly all of his offspring, certainly the ones that were made up were all very worthy winners. But amazingly, was a dog that was not used by more people in the breed, which I find completely strange, actually. But anyway, we used him, and we had a great litter by him, which came the dog Show Champion Rudolus Suberante, who again has gone on to produce. He produced the last bitch champion that David Crowther bred, which was Hound with Chortle with Hookwood. He produced only the second dog that was made up, bred in the UK to be made up in Germany, Rutulus Oliver Sudden. And he also produced a South African champion as well. So he has champion offspring in three different continents, which all come down from having been advised by Stephen and Patsy to use on Muse.
And outcrossing, how important do you think that is, or do you think do you outcross?
I don't breed an awful lot, to be honest. So I probably am not in the best position to say what people should do in terms of breeding. But I've had lots of different dogs from lots of different breedings, and all of my most successful dogs, interestingly, have all come from outcrosses. The pointer dog, Show Champion Afterglow Bareface Light Canucks, bred by Mike Gadsby and Jason Lynn. He was the product of a near complete outcross, because he was by the black and white dog Show Champion ad stock Professor Higgins with Afterglow, who was mated to a black and white bitch called Bradgate Mystic Mouthcat Canucks, and the Bradgate bitch lines were completely different to the ad stock stuff, and the dog line, I think the bitch was by the Chester Hope dog that Joanne showed, whose name I've completely forgotten, which is utterly dreadful. But it was one of the first Chester Hopes to be very successful across here. So he was a product of a complete outcross and won 14 tickets on a group, and has been very widely praised by a lot of people in pointers as being a very good pointer. The Gordon Setter dog, the show champion Lourdes Fulcrum James, he was also the product of an outcross. He was line bred on the bitch side, but the dog was almost completely unrelated on the paternal side, and he won. I mean, he's the top winning male Gordon Setter. He won 48 cc's, and he was the product of an outcross, but each done with care and done with knowledge as to what was behind each dog.
Yes.
And what could be produced from that, not just randomly outcrossing because these fashionable inbreeding coefficients that everybody seems to be so obsessed by now would have been a little bit lower. It had nothing to do with that, and it's something that I am not a fan of in the slightest, and I don't even know any of the COIs for any dog that I own or any breeding that I do, because I tend to look at the dog and look at the bitch and then look a bit at the pedigree and see what might come from things and then take it from there.
And when you do breed, when you're choosing a puppy to run on, what are you looking for? What makes that puppy stand out?
I read this question with interest because almost genuinely, completely every dog that I've had that we've done well with, either bred here or bred elsewhere, have come because they are the product of being left over that nobody else wanted. The pointer was different slightly. He was selected. The Gordon Setter dog was offered to 2 people before I was offered him, and they both said that he wasn't good enough. And then he came here to be sold as a pet. And then, as we probably do with all the youngsters, we watch them trotting about, we watch them just living their own lives and seeing what they look like, and then decide from there. Most people can create a bit of a shape and create a bit of this and a bit of that when they stand a dog up. So you can take a puppy and make it look a bit better here or a bit better there. But when the dog is trotting about the floor and when the dog's just standing, and standing looking at something, you get more of an idea what the puppy looks like. So kind of having a look at what's on the ground is a lot more important to having something stood on a table. And yeah, we do stand them up and we get a feel for them, and we have a look and compare them to their litter mates. But often is not the ones that are really good or the ones that stand out. Probably from, I would say, from about 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks old. Not really any earlier than that. I mean, I've never been one to think that you can pick them from the moment that they're born, as some people think that you can. Some people maybe can, but I don't think you can. But I like to see things up on their legs, and it's exactly the same with sheep. I've bred sheep very successfully as well, and I never sell lambs. I always keep them and run them on until they're yearlings, certainly. But it's important to see again what they're up and what they're like when they're up on their legs, and they've got a bit more about them. And attitude comes into it in sheep in much the same way as it does in dogs. And if you have something shy and retiring that's a bit sour about life and doesn't want to perform, then it will never be a good show dog. And as we all know, a lot of conformation can be slightly forgiven by attitude. And if you've got a dog with great showmanship, then it will get away with maybe not having quite as much this or quite as much of that as you'd like, but its attitude will carry it. So attitude is very important as well.
And that brings me to the next question very nicely. As a handler and a professional handler, what for you are the 3 pillars that make a dog a winner?
I read this question out to somebody and I said, what are the 3 pillars that make a dog a winner? And they said 3 friends, which I
all right.
Some cases
pretend you're not showing in the
UK. You've got to have attitude, I think, because if you don't have attitude and showmanship, you can have the best dog in the world and it will never be a show dog, because it won't perform, it won't want to be there, it won't move well, it will, if a dog hasn't got the attitude for it, which you can, as a handler and trainer, we can bring it out in dogs. And I do this quite often when I'm training people, try and bring out the showmanship attitude a bit more. But some dogs are just not born to be show dogs and they don't like it. So, that's just the way that they are. So attitude is important. Conformation, absolutely, because as a handler, you can hide a bit of this and hide a bit of that. But as I always say, you can't polish a turd. So you can't create something out of nothing. You can, as we always say, you can't polish a turd, but you can cover it in glitter, but glitter only lasts so long. So you've got to have the basics of conformation. So you've got to have attitude, you've got to have conformation, and you've got to have showmanship. Really comes from attitude, I suppose, but you've got to have, and certainly in the gun dog breeds, you've got to have movement, and you've got to have it all being able to come together with that dog on the move and make it come alive, because it doesn't matter how well or how good they look when they're stood up and when they're pulled into shape. They've got to look equally as good, if for me not better, when they're on the move.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And as somebody who shows American Cockers, and I keep saying this over and over again, there's no self-respecting American Cocker handler that can't put a slope on an American Cocker when it's standing.
Yeah,
it's when they move, it's when you see how good they really are.
It all comes together, or either it all falls.
And that's true of a lot of breeds. And presentation. I mean, Gordon setters, Irish setters, all the setters, they need presentation. And sometimes it's lacking in some of the exhibits that are on view. Is that a gift, or is that something you can learn?
Definitely something you can learn, because I'm not gifted in that department whatsoever, and I've learned how to do it. Fiona Swan, who is a great friend of mine, taught me probably most of what I know about Gordon Setter grooming. She's a groomer and a very successful miniature poodle exhibitor as well, and can take any mongrel and make it look fantastic, because she's a wizard with scissors. And she taught me an awful lot about the Gordon Setter side of grooming, and then I just had to get on and do it. Fiona and I used to house share, and then she got engaged and then ultimately got married, so ended up in her own house, and I did in mine, and it wasn't as convenient to just have her trim the dogs all the time, so I learned to do it. But I'd already done a bit with Josie, but Josie did most of the presentation and the work on her dogs. But presentation has changed in Gordon certainly a bit, and I think people on the whole make more effort. Some people make too much effort, and there's too much emphasis on coat when there should not be. But thankfully, the majority of dogs are decently turned out now, which is good. But I mean, I kind of learned on the job and learned as I went along. And now we have the Irish setters. We have an Irish setter dog, Gwendaris Red Light Show Farnfield, and an Irish setter bitch, Gwendaris Trolley Dolly. And if any of you know Diane Ritchie, I'm sure some of you will, because she's infamous. Presentation is certainly top of the list of priorities, and I've been drilled into me as to what to do, and there's been many been in my kitchen telling me how to trim this dog and how to do this, and then she's then seen pictures at shows and then told me I need to now do this and I need to now do that. So
you'll get your hands slapped if that's not right.
Absolutely, you get an absolute bollocking, yeah. So you can definitely learn as you go along, and if I can do it, then anybody can. It's not impossible to trim a dog. We might not all be able to be, the great, we might not be able to trim a poodle like Tom Isherwood can, but goodness me, everybody could have a go. And when it comes to setters, they're not the most difficult breeds to present. So it's not, as I say, if I can do it, it can't be rocket science.
Well, do you think in some parts of the world there's a temptation to over-present?
Yeah, absolutely, without question, yeah. And I think that's where the emphasis comes completely away from the dog and is entirely on coat and presentation, which it's not a grooming competition, and we're not, and when you look back, and as I frequently do across old yearbooks from the Gordon Setter clubs that have had yearbooks since the 70s and 80s, and great photos of all wonderful old dogs, and I look at a young dog now that I have who has a very, very moderate amount of coat. I would like him to have more even. And the criticism he always gets is he just needs more coat. And yet you compare him to the dogs of the 70s and 80s who you see adverts of that have 7, 8, 10, 12 cc's, and they had the same amount of coat that he has, because we have in some instances, and in a lot of breeds, certainly not just Gordons, become very, very concerned about having an awful lot of coat, and in some areas of dogdom more concerned about coat and presentation than what is underneath, because coat can hide so many things that, yes, it looks wonderful, but ask the dog to move around, and that's where the wheels come off the wagon and it all goes wrong.
And what would you think is your biggest achievement as a breeder?
As a breeder, probably having bred the Weimaraner dog that went and had all the success in Europe, because he was by a dog that I bred. So it was kind of carrying on a little bit of my own breeding, if you like, and he won in Poland and various other countries, but was also made up in Germany and has won working tests and such like across there, because they have to have the hunting qualification in Germany to be able to gain the title. So that as a breeder was a great thing for me. I've got a young Gordon Setter bitch in Italy who just picked up her second CAC at the weekend, which gives me great pleasure as well, because it's another one that's a way off somewhere completely different and winning. So out with the UK is always nice to have dogs that are winning there. But in this country, I made up a dog called Rutilis Subrante, a Weimar dog, and I enjoyed making him up, and because he was out of Muse and by Elliot, the Unstoppable dog, because Muse is one of my dogs of a lifetime, and to have a champion son of hers was great as well. So that was a great achievement for me.
And as I said in your introduction, you are probably amongst one of the top gun dog handlers, and as I said, other breeds as well. But when you take a dog on to handle, do you have a standard for what you will take on?
I don't take on so many now because I've got so many of my own, but yes, absolutely. And years and years ago, and I think we'll probably come on to this, it was another question further down. And when I was more of a junior handler, you kind of have this enthusiasm for everything that you just want to show dogs, and you want to get in the ring and you want to show dogs. So you'll show almost anything, really, to be honest. And it was Murray Armstrong actually who said to me at a show, and I vaguely remember, I think we may have shown something under him, and it was probably not the best dog in the world. And I remember him saying to me, "Listen, kid, never show a dog that is not worthy of winning a CC."
Yeah,
and that's always stuck with me. And you then have to have maybe slightly difficult conversations with people, or you have to then not take on the dogs to show that everybody wants you to show, because people will ask you to show anything. They don't.
Yes.
We all know that anybody can take any dog and want it to be shown, and then they'll ask somebody. And if you're a keen and enthusiastic enough handler, and you just want to show anything, you'll take it on, but you won't have success and you won't have a good reputation if you take on anything and everything. So you have to be fairly cutthroat and fairly ruthless about it, and only show dogs that are good enough, both dogs of your own that are good enough, and also dogs for other people as well.
Yeah. And when you do agree to take a dog on to handle, what is it that allows you get inside their head to allow them to do what you want them to do?
It can sometimes be a lot easier than it can be for the owners, because a lot of owners struggle because almost familiarity almost breeds contempt, and there are a lot of people that struggle to handle their own dogs because dogs have very bad habits at home, which are then transposed into the ring.
Yes.
Behave, because if a dog don't behave at home for its owner, it isn't going to behave in the ring. So sometimes that me being a third party and me being someone that doesn't live with the dog can make it a lot easier for me to gel with that dog. But you've got to get inside that dog's head and work with them, and understand what makes them. And I say this when I do handling presentations as well. You've got to understand what makes them tick, and be it your own dog or other dogs as well. And some dogs will work better by being told what to do and when to do it, and other dogs will work a lot better with you by a bit of the powers of negotiation. So it depends entirely on the dog, and every dog that every person handles will probably be handled in a different way. And if you show all of your dogs in the same way, you won't get everything out of every dog, because every dog is entirely different in the way
Yes.
to be shown.
Yeah. Have you ever had a dog that wasn't compatible?
Yeah, I've had a couple. I had one Hungarian Vizsla, Flick Butters, who lives local to me, bred a bitch called Flicksrain Kansas Kate, who was by Yogi and out of a Galfred bitch. So I had a complete outcross, but beautiful breeding on both sides. And she could be the most miserable bitch on the planet, 90% of the time. And you would get her out in the morning and you would think, yeah, she's on a good one now. And then you'd stand her in the ring and she just wouldn't like the way the wind was blowing, or, the colour of the sky wouldn't beat her taste, or, you'd have food for her which she'd suddenly take a dislike to. And we did all right with her. I mean, I won a CC in a best of breed with her at Darlington. Tamas Yakel shortlisted her in the group. Hungarian shortlisting a Hungarian breed is always good, I think. So, I mean, she was more than good enough, but she just didn't have much of a relationship with me when we were in the ring. She was great outside the ring, but she just didn't have a great relationship with me in the ring, and we didn't gel massively. As I say, she won one ticket and maybe about 6 reserve tickets, but our slight sourness sometimes and the bad attitude kind of cost her a lot, I think.
And do you prefer handling dogs or bitches? Or do you care?
Generally prefer handling dogs, which everybody finds funny because I like the boys. So yeah, I find dogs are easier. I prefer, and I think in nearly all breeds, I find dogs easier because, you can build a relationship with a dog and they'll work with you. Whereas a bitch will be a little bit more headstrong generally and perhaps a bit more stubborn and, have their own ideas about things. And you have to maybe work a bit more firmly with a bitch. Whereas a dog, I always find dogs want to work with you that little bit more, which is what I enjoy. All my kind of greatest show dogs that I've owned, James the Gordon Setter, Face the Weimaraner, probably Hendrix, this young Weimaraner dog, they're all males. And the bitches that I've shown have been great. Muse was a brilliant bitch to show. She was fantastic, but she just had that bit of an edge sometime that if she wasn't really wanting to do it, she would just let you know she didn't want to do it. So yeah, I generally find dogs are easier to show.
And young handlers, what sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I thought this was a question, and I've kind of touched on it briefly there, and that is don't show anything and everything, and don't spread yourself too thinly either, because I probably was at the risk of doing that when I started off. I would show anything, so I would show a GSP, a Vizsla, a Weimaraner, a Gordon Setter, an Irish Setter, anything, an English Setter, anything that anybody wanted me to show, I would show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're never going to win with them all. As much as any judge is going to be honest, if you particularly open shows, you're not going to take in 6 breeds and get 6 best of breed. But also, when you come in as a junior handler and you're new to it, there are unfortunately some people that will take a bit of an advantage of a young handler with a good nature. So a young handler will want to come in and show enthusiastically and show well any dog, but they might not always be the best dogs. So pick the dogs that you show as a junior, and when you're going in the breed ring, show good dogs, because how you start off and how your reputation begins when you're a junior handler starting off will be the reputation that sticks with you. And if you're always and only showing dogs that are worthy of winning CACs and CCs and green stars and group placing dogs and things like that, then you're starting off with a very good reputation, and that's what you want to carry on with.
Yes, that's good advice. Has there been a dog you bred or handled that you think you'll never see the like again?
The Gordon Setter dog, definitely. I don't think we will see the like of him again. Lourdes Fulcrum. I don't think so. And sometimes people say you don't realise what you've got until it's gone, and I think that can be the case, because he was, in my opinion, an excellent Gordon Setter. In the opinion of the 48 judges that gave him CCs and the 6 judges that gave him groups, he was an excellent dog. But he was also an easy dog, and you didn't realise how easy he was until he wasn't there anymore. He was never difficult to show. He was never problematic from puppy upwards. And he was just, the consummate show dog. He would put on a performance anywhere and everywhere, be it hot, be it cold, be it wet, be it dry. He would just always show. And I think that not just in terms of his qualities as a breed dog, I think in terms of his attitude, I think I would struggle to get that again.
Yeah, I think if we're lucky in our lifetime, we will get one dog special like that.
Yeah.
I think. So your biggest achievement as a handler?
Probably all that I achieved with the Gordon Setter dog, because he achieved a huge amount. He won 6 groups. He won the group at Crofts. He was 3 times best of breed at Crofts. He won 48 tickets, and I think he ended up with something like a huge amount of best of breeds, like 44, 45 best of breeds. So, that was, as a breeder owner handler, that a huge achievement. But there's loads of other things. There was, the day that we had Group 1 and Group 2 in Midland Counties with him and with a pointer was phenomenal. The day that we made up Oliver, the Weimaraner dog, James also got best of breeds. So, that was a double in 2 different, 2 big breeds that we won, and that was at Leeds in 2016 or 17, I think. So, there are so many things out there. The one thing that always is still, and it still is firmly in my memory, it was the first CC I ever won, which was under dear old Frida Marshall at Gundog Breeds, and I won it from junior or yearling. I think it was from junior with a Weimaraner. And and that was just incredible. I mean, I never ever in all the years after that never bloody won under Frida ever again, but she did give me my first CC.
And you've mentioned Crufts there now, and a few wins that you've had at Crufts. How special is Crufts to you, and does one particular win stand out for you?
I think Crufts is special because of the atmosphere. It's just a bit extra. The whole thing's a bit extra. It's a bit, a bit more atmosphere, a bit more pizzazz about it, just a bit more of a lift. There's just more to Crufts. So yeah,
it's like the Wimbledon of dogs.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's another champ show, and when I train people and work with handlers, I kind of emphasize that Crufts isn't this great big thing that they should all be scared of, because it is just another championship show. The processes and what you do as a handler are exactly the same. It just happens to be that it's in a fancy big indoor venue on a green carpet, and there's TV cameras that might go about it. But yeah, Crufts is I've been very lucky at Crufts actually, and in all three breeds, pointers, Gordons and Weimaraner, certainly I've never managed best of breed in anything yet apart from Gordon's, but we managed that 3 years on the trot, so we kind of did that with bells on. Weimaraners, I've had reserve ticket maybe about 4 times, so kind of always the bridesmaid, and the pointer managed to get, I think it was 2, maybe 3 reserve tickets. Somebody else would remember 2 or 3 reserve tickets at Crufts. So again, he was always the sort of bridesmaid as well. But when you're at Crufts,
but having said that, now just to interrupt slightly, I mean, when you're talking reserve ticket and Crufts in Weimaraners or pointers, I mean, unlike most of the rest of the world, you're talking huge numbers.
Yeah, I would, and I was just about to say that the entry is different because you've got so many. There are a huge amount there, and it is an incredible achievement to get. Say the pointer, for example, because pointed entries are always huge at Crufts, and
yes,
at least twice. We got the reserve ticket under John Evans, and he got the reserve ticket under Yvonne Hunt, and I think that was maybe all he got. But excellent big entries of real depth of quality both times. But let's face it, when we all show dogs, make no bones about it, we want best of breed. We want the ticket in best of breed. So it is great to win what you win, but it's a million miles away from what you want, it feels like sometimes. But it doesn't make us ungrateful. It just means that sometimes you just wish it was just a little step closer. But similarly, absolutely, to win in that company, in these bigger,
absolutely. And winning a group must be huge.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Winning any championship, I think, is huge, because I think we're very lucky here that all of the champ shows, you get groups that maybe aren't the best sometimes, but I don't think you ever get a group in the UK where anybody that judges it, particularly the Gundog group, where we have a number of big breeds, but also a big number of breeds. I don't think you would ever get a Gundog group in the UK where somebody wouldn't have more than one option. There's never
absolutely
stands.
That's very true.
So
that is very true.
And you have a lot of dogs to compete against, and a lot of usually top winning competition as well. So I think any group to win in the UK is great, and I'm very lucky that we've been successful with. One group, so the Gordon, obviously the pointer, I showed a Welsh Springer that won a group as well. So, to be in the placings in a group is generally in this country pretty good.
And what do you say to people when they say, it's David Alcorn, of course he won?
Sometimes I've never heard people say that, thankfully, but I do wish I knew, because it would probably make you less nervous about things, because I do get edgy when I'm going to the ring, because I want the dog to perform. I don't want to stuff it all up by getting things wrong. I want the dog to do well, and we all want our dogs to do well. And I've never, apart from maybe a couple of times where I've thought, to my detriment, I've thought that a judge might be good for a dog. I mean, we took 2 dogs once under somebody who had asked to use the male at stud and had asked for a puppy from the ditch. So you think, this should be good.
Yes.
We ended up 2nd out of 3 and 4th out of 5. So you never go with preconceived ideas, because it'll all go tits up and horribly wrong for you. And you maybe get an idea if you've won under somebody before, maybe a reserve ticket or a group place, and then they're doing the breed, maybe you get a bit of an idea that you might do okay, but then you're in a completely different sphere of things. Even if you've won a group under that person before and you end up in the group again, you will be in with other dogs. So I never count anything as being a foregone conclusion, certainly. And if anybody thinks that I win because it's me, then as I always say in the handling seminars that I do, I can't do anything for anybody. So I'm not in a champ show committee. I can't get them appointments. I don't give tickets in that many breeds that I can give them, 5 tickets in return for one or something like that. And when I do the handling talks that I do, I kind of start off by a bit of a background about me. And before I'd awarded CCs for the first time, I kind of counted up what I'd done, and I'd won 118 CCs across 12 different breeds. And that was before I awarded CCs in any breed. And I wasn't on any champ show committee, and I wasn't at that point on any general open show or breed club committee. So I was just showing good dogs. So my kind of point to everybody through this is that don't fall into the trap of thinking that only people that are on champ show committees or only people that are group judges or CC judges ever win, because it's absolutely not like that. There are a lot of very good judges out there who will reward good dogs and nothing else, which is exactly what we want.
Yeah. Dogs past or present that you would like to have owned or handled, any standout?
I don't think anybody in gun dogs could be into gun dogs and not mention the Vizsla Yogi, the show champion. Bear in mind the Australian dog that was across here.
He was special.
He was awesome. And my greatest regret in life was once when Murray and John were at, I think it was Border Union, and had the dog in the group, and he didn't win it. And they said, Murray said afterwards that that was a shame, because had he won the group, I was going to be asked to take him in for best in show because they couldn't come back. And that was the one thing in my life that I think, God, if only I would have loved to have gotten the end of that dog's lead. But there are so many across different breeds that are great show dogs. And interestingly, one of the breeds, and they have a new puppy actually there, Trish Hallam and Dee Hardy, that have the Basenjis, the Takagi kennel, have so many lovely Basenjis, and they had an American import dog who was called Riley, and I can't remember the affix. I think it was Kazor's make way for Riley. And I thought he was a great dog, and I watched him at Crufts a few times, and that's a dog that I would have loved to have probably shown, if not owned, because I thought he was a grand sort as well. And they've had various other Basenjis that are great quality dogs and great show dogs as well, which is what I like with that attitude. But I mean, gosh, there are so many, really so many.
Yeah, they're quite special Basenjis, aren't they? Because they do have a certain attitude, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. They have attitude like plus, and they have this.
And when they're good, they're good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the showmanship and the presence that they have for such a small dog is incredible. They're a breed that I like an awful lot.
And dogs past or present that you've either owned or handled. I think you probably answered this earlier, but which of them did you think were extra special?
I've probably got 2. So the Gordon Setter dog, definitely, because he was special. He was easy. He was never a problem. He was a great show dog, and also the Weimaraner Bet show champion got on Muse, because she was ahead of her time almost, and I wish I had her now, because she was one of the first Weimaraners that I showed, and maybe I could do better with her now. Who knows? But she won, I think, 5 tickets, about 10 reserve tickets, and she had a really, really great group too at Bath under Moa Persson, I think it is, from Sweden. Behind Yogi, the Hungarian Vizsla. So, we were in great company. And she was an excellent show dog. She was another one that from puppy upwards, she was just easy all the time and had this attitude and showmanship, as well as, a nicely constructed bitch that really moved with it all. She had this attitude when she went out on the move that was great as well. So definitely those 2. And the pointer too, I can never forget the pointer either. As I say, I've been very, very lucky with the dogs that I've got. The pointer is Barefaced Lie. He is definitely up there, because he came to me from Mike and Jason, because he'd had a bit of a scare at a show. He decided he didn't like showing, and he was I was his last chance saloon, and I took the dog on and worked with him an awful lot and achieved what he achieved. He is a great dog, and to have gone from a dog which a lot of breed people said would never be able to be turned around, because he was not overly nervous about things, he was just apprehensive about things.
Yes.
But to have been able to turn him around and he won 14 tickets, he won all of the group placings, a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And it's still going strong now at 12 and a bit years old. He is a great dog as well.
And how much more special is it to have a big win with a dog that you've bred as opposed to a dog that you are handling for somebody? Is there a difference?
I don't think there's a massive difference, apart from the fact that if you've bred something, you've probably got a bit more of an emotional involvement and more of an emotional investment into that dog. You've been there from the moment I arrived until the moment you're in the ring. So, certainly if it's something that you've bred or even is by one of your dogs, there's always a bit more of an emotional attachment, whether we like to admit it or not. So something that you've bred or something that is the offspring of something of yours, I think naturally there's a bit more of, if you like, an affinity with that than a dog that you handle. But other than that, I think we take every win and every achievement is every single one individually. So, they can't really be compared. So I think the difference between somebody else's dog and your own dog, I show everybody's, if I'm handling for somebody, I'd like to think that I show them in the same way that I would show my own dogs. So I don't have a difference in that respect. So every win is of the same value and the same importance to me, generally speaking. Yeah.
I'll just briefly say hello to Jarmo Hilpinen in Finland is watching online. Haven't seen Jarmo in so long. I hope he's keeping well. Colin Woodward's watching. Tom Mervyn, Anne Ingram. I'll say hello to you. I hope Colin's not wearing the hat in the house. So,
I'm getting your cross-based show appointment carried over.
Absolutely, yeah, fair point. Yeah, absolutely, well deserved. She's one of Ireland's top and most respected judges, and she does a great job no matter where she is.
Interestingly, actually, the Anne's popped up because it's another dog that I forgot to mention was a standard poodle dog that I showed, which I did not have an affinity with at all because he was an absolute bastard of a dog. He was called Silvera Mastermind and owned by a lady in Scotland called Leslie Bryden, bred by Agnes Murphy, and he was a naughty dog. He just took the piss all the time.
It's a standard poodle for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. And we showed him under Anne at Blackpool one year, and she gave him third. And she came down the line and said something like, keep working with this dog. He's a nice dog. And I did mention to her afterwards. I didn't really know her then, and then we sort of got to know each other as the years went on. And then mentioned to her that I always remembered that, and she did say, "Well, he must have been good then, because I wouldn't normally bother." So he was a dog that was another big challenge, and yeah, I mean, he won a fair amount. He won a few classes. He got, I think he was best to breed without tickets at a club show and whatever. But he was a real challenge of a dog. Not even standard poodle challenge, a real challenge over and above that. So yeah.
So we touched on COVID at the start of the interview. Do you think COVID's going to have an impact on the sport in the future, or do you think people are going to roll back and just rock back up where they left off?
Southern counties, I think, would lead you to believe that people are going to just pick back up where they left off, but I don't know. I have a bit of a worry as now a breed club secretary and involved with a few different breed clubs. I have a bit of a worry that things might drop off. I'm a bit slightly concerned that people might be all excited to get back to it and then realise that actually they've spent a lot of money on travelling to a great distance to a show, and they haven't maybe done as well as what they did, or it rained, or somebody doesn't sanitize the table and they got a bit pissed off about it, or all these things at the great and glorious dog show.
Or they realise how much money it's costing them.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I think we might lose some people in the next couple of months once there are a few shows back on. People, I mean, I know a few people that are maybe being a bit pickier and choosier as to where they go. So, overall, we might not lose people. We just might not see some of them so often. So I think it will, as with all different things in life, I think it will have a long-term effect on a lot of things.
Yes. One of them. So is there a judge, a breeder or a handler that, and this can be worldwide, that you really have a great admiration for, and it can be past or present?
Again, there's quite a few, because, and not all people that I've won under, not all people that I've even shown under, because there are a lot of great judges. I think Espeneng is an excellent judge, and
absolutely
different breeds and have shown with success and without success under him.
Yeah.
So certainly he would be in my. He's always professional. He's always polite. He has a great, I think, ability to almost make everybody feel like they're the most important exhibitor there. He's very professionally polite to everybody, which I think is a great character attribute to have. Patsy Hollins is a great friend of mine and is has a huge amount of knowledge, which I think she
enormous,
an awful lot, and is a great judge, and again has a nice manner, and a nice manner with dogs and animals in general, which I think Espen is the same. You know, this pleasant manner with the animals that they're judging, but also I think for me, the judges that I respect the most are the ones that are interested and look interested and don't stand with be it somebody that's judging an open show or somebody that's doing best in show at Crufts. You know, if they look interested and like they're enjoying themselves, it means so much.
Yeah, they're not just making up numbers so they can move on to their next appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, you know, sometimes, you know, I've been in maybe a puppy group that I can think of where you kind of got the impression that it was a dreadful inconvenience that this person
yes.
puppy thing.
Yeah.
Sorry that we're here, but kind of not our fault.
Yeah. So you're having a dinner party. And I know you're a party animal. 4 dinner guests that you must have at the table.
I struggled with this one because there are a lot of people I would ask, but there's a lot of people I see a lot of the time, so I wouldn't ask them because it would be a bit special. But we'd have to have Patsy and Jackie because Jackie would entertain everybody, so we'd have to have them, and they come as a double act, so they'd probably take up one chair, okay, because they are twins. So that takes one space. If I just think in the UK, I mean, to go abroad could be here forever. To think in the UK, Sigurd Wilberg, I have a huge amount of time for. I think he's a great character with an awful lot of knowledge. And I enjoy, if I ever have the time, to sit ringside with Sigurd and talk about dogs. So I would certainly have him there. Liz Dunhill is another one I would ask her because we always have great fun at shows. We have a great laugh. I never see Liz very much at shows because we're usually on different days, but we always have good fun. And again, it's nice to not only talk dogs with Liz, but obviously Liz does show dog whisperer training and I do my rapport show dog training. So we often talk about, you know, training and attitudes of handlers and attitudes of dogs in the ring and dogs that we've enjoyed training and dogs that we then see blossom as we go along. So certainly her as well. And then after that, to pick a 4th place, goodness, it's quite tricky. There are so many people that you could have such good fun at dinner with. Gosh, I can't even think of a 4th one. I might just leave it open at 3 because we've got Patsy and Jackie taking up double space.
Yeah, somebody might ring the doorbell. So, your funniest or most embarrassing moment as a handler or judge?
I've not had many as a judge, thankfully. I've had a few as a handler, and it's usually wardrobe malfunctions. I showed a pointed at SKC once when it used to be outdoors, and as I went round the ring, my jacket, the pocket of my jacket caught on the metal spoke thing side of the ring, and I kept going, and the jacket didn't, so it ripped. That was showing a pointer of the Browns, Margaret and Mary Brown's pointer of Freebreeze, so. And we didn't even win because of that either. So that was one. We were at Richmond one year when I was showing Fiona's miniature poodle for her. And as I had a Vizsla with me as well, and as I went to put her on the bench, the arse of my trousers split and I only had one pair of trousers. So unfortunately I had to show the poodle in jeans. I had a good day because they won the ticket in best of breed. And it's not the sort of breed that you expect to be going into the group with wearing jeans. So I was mortified about that.
Well, that does bring me on to a private message I've just received.
Oh, geez.
Right? And it is to ask you who is the best dressed handler in the show world after yourself, and who do you model your style on?
I'm probably going to guess who this is from.
Go on, throw it out.
I have a twin in Northern Ireland, Tom Meredith. Have remarkably similar outlines and fashion tastes, but Tom always wears the same jacket that I do, so it's nice that he follows on. His are always just a size larger, I believe, as well. So.
Oh, meow. So if you hadn't started showing dogs, what would you be doing?
I have no idea because it's such a life-consuming hobby that you think I don't know what I'd be doing or where I would be. even when it came to where I live now, I live in bigger than South Lanarkshire, and I live just outside of town. So I've got a rural property which was really bought for the dogs more than anything, because we have about 12 acres and there's room in the house for the dogs. So it's a very much a kind of dog environment. So it may well have affected that as well. So even in my sheep breeding and showing may have not come to fruition if I hadn't had dogs. So where would I be without dogs? Probably not living in the country. Well, I probably would have been, actually, because countryside I'm more of a country person than a town person. But probably, spending time with I would have thought maybe a different animal other than dogs. Horses have always been in my life in some way or another. So possibly I would have gone more into horses. I've showed horses once or twice. I've helped run shows. I commentate at shows. So the horse aspect may have taken over if dogs hadn't.
How different is the sheep showing? Is it pretty similar? Is it as competitive?
It's as competitive with some people and not with others. I mean, I'm competitive with everything I do. I mean, I'm competitive with my sat nav when I go to shows, and I've got to get there. That's just how I am. So yeah. I mean, there are competitive people in sheep showing, and it's not dissimilar. It's about breeding and producing and bringing out the best animal you can, and different sheep judges will look for different things. They have, for me, there is slightly more of a down to earth honesty about things. I remember we went to a show once, and in another breed, somebody who was judging came up to another exhibitor that I happened to be in the vicinity of, and they said, "Well, you'll be wondering why I didn't do you better today." And the exhibitor, who was in the pen with her sheep, sort of grew a couple of inches and said, "Well, actually, I thought I would have done better today." And the judge just honestly and completely replied with the phrase, "Well, your sheep are shite." And that was it. And the guy was sort of taken aback, and then he continued to then tell him why, and that was it, and it was just accepted, and we
get away with that at a dog show, wouldn't you?
Well. So yeah,
that'd be some critique.
The kind of farmyard honesty I quite like, and I mean, we were very lucky recently at the Highland Show. I do think they because you never really have a kind of campaign on a sheep, so you'll take different animals to different shows, and you don't gain an awful lot by keeping going with the same animal. So we will all have more than one at home, so we'll take out a selection of the flock, because you want your whole flock to do well, not just one animal necessarily. So you have this, you might be taking a sheep out one week that's never been touched in however long, or you might then take another one out the week after that. So it's a different element of it in that aspect, that you don't have a kind of one that you necessarily show.
So you're not campaigning one animal.
I had one 2 years ago that we did an awful lot with, a homebred Gimmer who went to 5 shows and was champion 4 times, but has never been shown since. And the ewe that we won with at the Highland Show, she was reserve female and reserve overall at the Highland Show in a big entry. Was born in 2017 and had never been off the premises in her life. So just went to her first show, and that's how she got on. So you do have more of a turnover of stock and sheep that you won't get the same one over and over again.
So if you could be transported to another country to live, where would you go?
Argentina.
Really?
Yeah.
That's random.
Yeah. I travelled through South America for 6 months between 2005 and 2006, and we flew into Brazil and then travelled all the way through Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Bolivia, Chile, Peru, and Ecuador, and flew home from Ecuador the following May. So we arrived in Brazil in the November and then flew home in the following May, and did as much as we could do in 6 months. And between probably Peru and Argentina were probably the most beautiful countries that I've visited. And Argentina for me just has a bit of the edge. The country is beautiful. The people are on the whole very, very friendly. We only went to dog shows in Chile, and they were excellent. I loved the Chilean dog shows. They were great. The people were fantastic and very welcoming. But Argentina as a country, it's so vast and so different. You go from Bariloche, we stayed in the south, which is just on the tip of being in sort of the coldest region of Argentina. If we'd gone further south, we could have skied and seen icebergs. And then you go up into Cordoba and Mendoza, which is almost like a desert. It's so arid.
Yes.
So it's a huge, great country with such a diversity, but beautiful, and and on top of it all, they make the most delicious wine, which is so cheap when you're there as well. So what's not.
Well, that's a bonus, yes. Yeah, Susan White, typical Susan. Yeah, thanks, Susan. We won't go into sheep activities in Ireland. So
I guess it's similar to what they do in Wales. So we try not to invite Welsh people to stay.
Oh, apologies to Welsh people. So what's your guilty pleasure, David?
Gin, probably. I have a huge and vast gin collection, which I delve into on an almost daily basis, because if it was good enough for the Queen Mother, it's good enough for me.
Absolutely. And finally, if you could write your epitaph, what would it be?
I've always said I would hate, and I always think it's a dreadful thing whenever anybody departs, that the only thing people ever say is how nice and lovely and beautiful and wonderful and whatever they were. I wouldn't mind if somebody said they didn't like me, or I was a bit of an awkward bastard, or I was, a bit forthright about things. I've never.
We all say that about you anyway.
I've never tried to be, the nice person that everybody loves, because I think if you are always trying to be that, you're never honest enough. And my grandfather taught me an awful lot about say what you feel if you truly believe in it. He was in the RAF and was notorious. He was a very, very strong character. I don't know where I get it from. He was a very, very strong character and very outspoken and very forthright. And when he was in the RAF, he came up against a situation that he could not speak out about, which he did. And he was never allowed to fly from that time. But he still didn't regret it, because he believed what he did and how he acted was correct. And I've kind of always tried to bear that in mind. And yeah, I would hate for somebody to say that I was always nice and lovely and wonderful and whatever, because I suppose I can be like that, but gosh, nobody is like that all the time. So yeah, and I think nice is such an insipid word anyway that it's just bland.
David, thank you very much. It's been absolutely enthralling. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Really interesting. The reactions have been very good all over. Apologies for the interruption earlier.
Technology is great when it works.
Yeah.
Technology is great when it works, but it always
absolutely
in the public domain. I've had when I do the handling seminars, my laptop, when I had one big one to do one night, my laptop decided to die on me completely. So I had to do it on my phone with Gavin helping me out with you working through PDFs of the presentation. So yeah, it's sent to try.
Well, I hope you stay safe and well. I hope everything doesn't go too harsh in the UK and Scotland, etc. Enjoy the shows. Enjoy the shows now. They're back. As I say, you're luckier than we are, because we're not going to see one this side of next March. And next week, my guest on Meet the Judge will be Dick Rutten from the Netherlands, who's a fascinating man and a wonderful judge. So please join me then. In the meantime, David, good night.
Thank you.
Enjoy your gym, and go and look after the sheep.
Shall do. Hopefully we'll see you soon as well.
Hopefully.